I'm really sorry. It's okay, take your time and tell me slowly, I said gently as my niece fought back tears. Despite her distress, I encouraged her softly, trying to offer comfort. Before she could say anything more, she pulled an audio recording from her pocket and played it. I was stunned by the voice I heard, cursing my own ignorance. The situation was far more tragic and difficult than I had realized. Overwhelmed by the revelation, I broke down in tears and steeled myself for what was to come. Let me introduce myself. I'm Kathy. I work at an IT company where I hold a responsible position and earn a decent living. Although I could afford to live on my own, I stay with my parents since my workplace is close by and I can work remotely. I contribute financially to the household, and my parents prefer my company as they would otherwise feel lonely. I have an older sister who is 2 years my senior. She used to be happily married to a kind man, and they had a daughter named Susan. However, her husband passed away from an illness 3 years ago. At his funeral, I saw how exhausted my sister was and suggested, "Why don't we come back home until things settle down? You have Susan to think about too." "Thank you for worrying, Kathy, but I'll be fine," she replied. She refused to return home, and though I found it odd, I attributed it to her strong-willed nature and her reluctance to lean on our parents. She continued working and raising Susan as a single mother. Despite the increasing burden, she assured me she was managing. A year ago, my sister fell ill and passed away. We took Susan, who was still in elementary school, into our home. Since moving in with us, Susan seemed unusually withdrawn. I remembered her as a lively and cheerful girl when her parents were alive, and I knew losing both parents so quickly must have been a heavy blow. I wanted to help her regain her spark. My parents tried talking to her, but she remained unresponsive. I suggested outings on my days off, but she showed no interest. Not wanting to push her too hard, I held back. 3 months later, Susan suddenly started apologizing, crying when my parents weren't around. "Kathy, I'm sorry," she said, tears streaming down her face. "What happened? Did something bother you?" I asked, confused. "No, it's not that. I'm just sorry," she repeated, her tears a complete surprise to me. She wouldn't explain why she was crying, only apologizing, and she always managed to keep it hidden from my parents. This only fueled my curiosity further. Another puzzling issue was my parents' frequent trips over the past few years. While occasional travel was fine, I couldn't understand how they could afford it on my contributions and their modest pensions. My father had been a manager at a small company and after retiring hadn't worked. My mother had been a housewife. Despite my efforts to manage most of the household chores, they seemed to be spending more than they should. "Mom, Dad, it's okay to travel sometimes, but please save some money. You don't need to keep saying you're careful with your spending. I've worked hard for you all these years, and we don't have much time left," I said, trying to be considerate. "Stop meddling in our affairs. We just want to enjoy ourselves," they retorted. I was exasperated. Whenever they went on trips, Susan seemed like she wanted to share something but never did. I decided to wait until she was ready to talk. A few months later, my father approached me, looking pleased. "Kathy," he said, "your mother and I are going on a week-long overseas trip soon." "An overseas trip? How can you afford it?" "I just told you to save money." I protested. "We came into a bit of money," my father replied dismissively. "From where?" I asked, but he waved my question away. "Does it matter? We want to make some memories in our old age. Your mother and I deserve this experience." "All right, fine," I said, though I couldn't shake the suspicion about their sudden windfall. I decided not to push further, thinking it was their money after all. "Take care of things at home while we're gone," they instructed. "Got it. Have a safe trip," I replied, trying to mask my concern. On the day of their trip, my parents left cheerfully, promising to bring back souvenirs. After seeing them off, I turned back to the living room and found my niece, Susan, standing there, looking as if she were on the verge of tears. Recognizing that something needed to be done, I decided to confront her. "Susan, what's the matter? Your grandparents have left for their trip. It's just the two of us now. Please take your time and tell me what's wrong." "I'm sorry," she said, beginning to cry again. I gently urged her to open up. "Actually," she said, pulling out her smartphone and pressing play, "I need to show you something." The recording that played was filled with my parents' angry voices. I was stunned. No matter how I listened, it was unmistakably their voices, though they had never spoken to me like this before. "Is this really Grandpa and Grandma?" I asked, incredulous. "Yes," Susan confirmed, her voice trembling. "They often came over when my parents were still alive. They used to nag and complain a lot, especially about my parents' marriage and making irrational demands for money, claiming it was compensation for taking their daughter away." I was horrified. I had no idea they were like that. I thought they were just visiting to see their granddaughter. Susan continued, "They would threaten my parents under the guise of visits, extorting money every time they came. I would hide in my room whenever they were here because they were always yelling at my parents." "I see," I said, feeling a pang of guilt. "That must have been really tough. But how did you manage to record this?" Susan explained that she had been given an old smartphone of her parents as a toy, and she happened to use it during one of those visits, capturing their angry outbursts. I was grateful for her bravery in recording this evidence. "How often do they come to your house?" I asked, the question that had been bothering me. "I think it was almost every week," Susan replied. "To think they visited my sister's family so frequently without my knowledge was shocking." In hindsight, I remembered how my sister and her husband had appeared increasingly haggard each time I saw them. When I asked my sister if she was okay, she had said they were just dieting together, which I had taken at face value. But now I realized that the strain from my parents' demands must have been wearing them down. I cursed myself for not probing further. If I had noticed the signs sooner, this might not have happened. "I'm sorry for keeping it hidden," Susan said through her tears. "I was scared of what Grandpa and Grandma might do if I told you." "I should have been more aware," I said, holding her close. "I'll protect you from now on." "But what if they come after you too?" Susan asked, her voice trembling. "Don't worry about me," I reassured her. "I won't let them win. We'll face this together." "Yes, if I'm with you, I'm not scared," Susan said, determination in her eyes. Seeing her resolve, I nodded. During the week my parents were away, Susan and I prepared. With her support, I felt even more determined. I remembered how frugal my sister and her husband had been. My sister had once told me they rarely carried cash, preferring bank transfers. If they had given money to my parents, it would have been through these transfers. I searched the house and eventually found what I was looking for. I discovered my parents' bank passbook revealing the frequent deposits they received from my sister and her husband. It was clear they had been living frugally to cover these payments. Ripping the passbook, I trembled with anger. I decided to take it to a private investigator to uncover the full extent of my parents' dealings. A few days later, I was summoned to the investigator's office. "Here is the report," the investigator said, handing me a folder. As I read through the report, my shock and anger deepened. It detailed how my brother-in-law had been borrowing money from financial institutions to pay my parents, which led to his mental exhaustion and eventual death. My sister had worked herself to the brink trying to repay these debts and meet my parents' constant demands. Additionally, my parents had mistreated Susan, claiming they were doing her a favor by letting her stay with them. The revelation was devastating. I started to cry, feeling a profound sense of betrayal. How could they do this without me knowing? I wondered aloud. Furthermore, the report revealed that my parents had even taken my brother-in-law's insurance money. "You can't be serious," I said as I reviewed the additional documents confirming this. "They must have used that money for their frequent trips." I thanked the investigator and returned home, determined to address this betrayal. Until my parents came back from their overseas trip, Susan and I finalized our plan. "Do you think we can pull this off?" I asked Susan. "Don't worry," she said confidently. "We still have time. Let's practice as much as we need." "I'll do my best," I promised. We rehearsed our plan until Susan felt confident. A few days later, we were ready and waited for my parents to return. We had set up cameras around the house to capture everything on video and audio as evidence. I had discussed this with my lawyer and received approval. When my parents finally came home, they were full of excitement. "We're home. Did you have a good time?" I asked. "Yes, it was great. We brought lots of souvenirs." "Where's Susan?" they replied. "She's doing her homework in her room. You must be tired from your trip, so why don't you rest for a bit?" I suggested. "That sounds good. How about some tea?" my mother asked. "I'll make it," I offered. "No, let me," my mother insisted. "I always make your father's tea." "All right, understood," I said, preparing to carry out the next steps of our plan. My parents seemed to have enjoyed their trip immensely, regaling me with stories when I returned. "Oh, sorry, I need to step out for a bit," I said, faking an urgent work call. "It happens sometimes. I'll be back soon." "Take care," they responded, still buzzing from their travels. Once I was sure they had relaxed, I excused myself, signaling the start of our plan. After leaving the house, I called Susan. "Hey, Susan, I've left the house." "Got it," she replied, keeping our call connected as she went to confront my parents. "Oh, welcome back," my parents greeted Susan. "We brought back lots of souvenirs." "Thank you," Susan said, "but I need to talk to you." "What is it? Speak up." Following my father's directive, Susan played the recorded audio. The shock on my parents' faces was immediate. "Where did you get that?" my father demanded. "Susan, be a good girl and give that to me." My parents were visibly panicked. "I was planning to let Kathy hear this," Susan said. "Please don't do that," my mother pleaded. "Do you know what will happen if you do?" "But this isn't right," Susan countered. "We took you in when you had nowhere else to go, so you should listen to us." "Yes, if it weren't for us, you wouldn't be getting any welfare benefits," my father added. "Then why are you kind to Kathy?" Susan pressed. My parents' anger flared. "We're nice to her because she brings money into the house," they admitted. "We're living off your father's pension now, so if Kathy leaves, we'll be in trouble." "That's right," my mother continued. "As long as she's around, she'll always give us money when we need it. She's a convenient fool." Hearing their true feelings was devastating. My anger reached its peak. I stormed back home, my mind racing. Bursting through the door, I shouted, "Oh, so this is how you really feel about me? You see me as nothing more than a cash cow and a housekeeper." "Of course we're not working anymore," my father shot back. "How else are we supposed to live on just a pension?" "That's right," my mother chimed in. "We need your help to survive." They didn't deny their actions and shamelessly demanded more money. The thought of staying in this house under these conditions made me sick. "If that's how you feel, I won't give you any more money," I said. "I'm taking Susan and we're leaving. Don't contact us again." "How will we live without you?" they protested. "I know everything," I said. "I know you took money from my sister and brother-in-law." "What are you talking about?" my father asked, feigning ignorance. "Did Susan tell you?" my mother inquired. "Yes, she did," I confirmed. "We have all the evidence, so don't bother arguing." Susan went to pack her things, and I took her hand when she returned. We left the house and stayed at a hotel near my workplace, which I had arranged beforehand. A few days later, I found a new place for us to live. Shortly after we moved in, I received a call from the police. "Is it true?" I asked, bewildered. "Yes," the officer confirmed. "Your parents have been arrested for shoplifting." "No way," I said, unable to believe it. I was only gone a few days. How could they have run out of money so quickly? Besides, they were getting welfare benefits for taking care of Susan. Reluctantly, I went to the police station. My parents, looking repentant, apologized. "We just made a mistake," they said. I took them back to the house. The utilities, electricity, gas, and water, had been cut off, and the house was in a terrible state. It reeked of filth, a testament to my mother's poor housekeeping. "How did everything get cut off? Were you that broke?" I asked, appalled. "And what's with this mess?" "Of course we're broke," my father said. "We were enjoying our retirement, but we can't manage housework anymore. You took Susan, so we stopped getting welfare. My pension isn't enough." "If you had kept giving us money, we wouldn't have had to steal," my mother said bitterly. They angrily blamed me for their situation. I sighed in exasperation. "This is your own fault. How many times did I tell you to save money? Yet you kept going on week-long trips every few months." "Enough of that," they snapped. "Just give us the money to pay for the utilities. We can't live here without them, and get a cleaning service. This place is uninhabitable." Their demands were relentless, and their blame shifted entirely onto me. I was beyond furious. I was simply fed up. "All right," I said, my voice cold. "You refuse to acknowledge your faults. In that case, I'm done." "What? What are we supposed to acknowledge?" my mother asked, bewildered. "Fine, this is the last time I'll speak to you," I said. "I'm cutting ties with you. Don't contact me again." I left the house, and a month later, it was vacant. The house, which was in my name, was sold, forcing my parents to leave. They had forgotten that detail. After some time, I went to apologize to the neighbors for any trouble caused. They informed me that loan sharks had been lurking around, indicating my parents had turned to them for money. Rumor had it they were seen in a park, looking disheveled. Eventually, I legally separated from my parents and adopted Susan as my daughter. Our bond grew stronger, and Susan's cheerful spirit returned. Our lives stabilized, and I vowed to continue watching over her and make my late sister proud. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video.